But it was interesting because that year, the year before, for example, we were the first year in 2018 that we had um, what you call it, a newspaper reporter interview us. It was a random thing. It was a Turkish lady out there, and she had her drone team, and that's the first time I was able to use my drone because they let me fly under their
Mm,
license, their permit for that area. And so 2018, she interviewed me. It was mainly for audio, but it was a write up in their web on their website. And so that was the first time I was in the news like that. Then I remember 2019 comes around, and when I go back to Turkey, this is after my parents had passed away. Um, where I'm there, and I get contacted. I don't know how how they reached out to me, but it was the Science Channel, and they're actually a sub channel, whatever you want to call it, a part of Discovery Channel, and they wanted to set up do a 1 hour film just about the site and the controversy. Is it Noah's Ark or not? And so it was like a special. It wasn't part of a series. And or actually, maybe it was under a series. Yeah, I think it was. But it's a 1 hour episode for their series. I forget. I think it was like Mysteries Unknown or Mysteries something. And so when they talked to me earlier the year, they asked, "Are you going to do like we need action shots? Are you going to do anything out there?" I said, "Well, we don't have anything planned." And it was very difficult. We're trying to push this Turkish archaeologist that we had just met the year before to let us do something that year. Like not for that it was her like her position to give us permission, but we wanted her to go get the permission. And so we put a lot of pressure on her that summer. But I was telling this film crew, okay, well, maybe you can push it off to the very end of the year, before the rain comes and the snow and before I leave. And so they picked a date. This is early in the summer, and they had to go through the permit process. And so they picked a date of I think the week it was like October. I have to look at my notes in the past, but like October, it was 7 days, a 6 day week period. I think then like 13th to the 19th, like the third week of October. I remember the 19th or 18th. I left for Saudi Arabia again. This is when I overstayed the visa. So they had set their dates, and this is really important because at that time we didn't know if there was going to be any archaeology work done or survey work, and so they might just show up in this, kind of a boring show. They'd film the site, interview me and some locals, and then that's it. And so that was all we could do. Well, by end of September that year, and again, I'm staying in Turkey this whole time, way past my 90 days. And I remember end of September, this lady, archaeologist, she goes to Ankara, the capital of Turkey. She comes back and says, well, it was good and bad. She because when she left, she said, "Yes, you guys can do the work." This is and so when she went to Ankara, she said, "Yeah, and I'm really positive we'll get the permission." And so that weekend, out of the blue, I had somebody contact me who had seen me on another YouTube interview series by a Messianic ministry, and they watched that, and we had talked about we might need volunteers. We were hoping we could do another excavation, and so they had my email address on the screen and the website, and so this person contacted me and said, "Hey, what's the latest? I'd like to help somehow." And so this is the same weekend that this lady had just gone off to Ankara. And so before we heard back from her, I told this guy, "Well, we have the Science Channel coming in 3 weeks. We believe this lady is going to get permission for us to, at the minimum, do scans. Like we can finally like scan the boat with modern technology. Because the last we were looking at GPR. We wanted to duplicate Ron White's results, Dr. Sally Barak Tutun's results, and using, of course, the new technology. It's all digital. You can make a 3D model and all that. And so this guy says, "Well, guess what? One of my good friends is the vice president of a company based out of Oregon. They have offices in Atlanta, Georgia, and this guy lives in Atlanta, Georgia, near the VP of this company, and they do GPR." Like, whoa! So he said, "Let me call this guy." I remember it was like a Friday or Saturday, and I was up at one of the tourist sites around the town. Like I think it was Ishak Pasha Palace, this Ottoman palace that we show the tourists. And so I was like, it was really bad cell signal service. I'm trying to talk to him, and his friend who worked for that company calls me, and he said, "Well, tell me about your project." And so I explained the whole thing about this Noah's Ark site and that what we need to do. What did he suggest for the scans? And he said, well, our normal rate. He said, first, that's this coming. This is 3 weeks away. And this was end of September, and we're looking at the last week, the third week of October, to do our first, like my first like project on the Arc site. I was there for the 2014 scans, but I was like, taking videos, talking to the guy doing the work. But anyway, so I'm organizing it now, and this VP of this company says, "Okay, I think we can do it. We have it was a lot of back and forth phone calls, and they even reduced their rate by 50%.
Oh,
So, and then I found like within a week, we got the 25,000 needed. That includes everything: airfare, hotels, food, the local people who are helping us, their payment, and then the large, I mean, over half of that was for this company. And they brought in a team of 4 people, I think. So they were going to do lidar, which uses laser to map out the site, which we wanted this. So they'll give you exact down to the millimeter or so, or maybe a couple centimeter accuracy of the terrain, or the surface of the arc. So now we have this very accurate 3D model on our computer of the boat. And so I was, we wanted to do that so for a couple of purposes. One, so we can our goal was combining, which was kind of a new thing, combining the top data, the terrain, the surface with what's going on underneath. So then we can look at the boat shape and say, okay, at this layer here, look right down. Okay, this is where we're seeing a room or whatever, the walls of those arc or the floor. And so we wanted that type of information. In the past, it was always separate. You got two different technologies. You had the GPR radar and you had the like LiDAR above ground, and the two different data sets. And it would take a lot of expertise and time and to try to combine both models. But now it can be done more easily. And so we want to get the LiDAR data. So they brought in an expert for that, who was an atheist
mm,
actually, and he told us, "Look, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in Noah's Ark, but I'm here to do a job." He was a professional, really nice guy. And then they also brought in a GPR professional he was a technician, geophysicist. I don't know if he was a geophysicist, but he knew how to. He did radar work, and then the data was collected for the geophysicists to analyze. And so he was brought in. Then they brought in one of their teammates to help. In fact, the guy who emailed me and set it all up, he was brought in because he knew the VP, and then the VP himself was there. And so they had four, and then we had a photographer slash videographer there, and myself and a number of locals. And so that was the team. And it just so happened that we got everything set up for them to be there the same week that the Science Channel, months in advance, had already set the date for their film trip. So they were super excited. So I called them up. I said, "Hey, we actually have a whole team going to be there doing scientific work. They're going to be radaring the site with two different antennas, and we're going to do lidar, and we're going to attempt to do thermal scans, trying to peer below the surface, see if there's a difference in the heat signature. Because maybe if there's petrified rock, wood, like which is rock, right below the surface, maybe that would be a different color and show through when you with these really uh, sensitive thermal cameras. Maybe it'll show through on the surface." We were trying to do it with the drone, but we didn't. Again, they had some issues, and this is a border area by Iran, and so the Turkish military said we cannot use any drones during this trip. So, in fact, we wanted to do the lidar with the drone. So on this trip, they had to do the lidar, terrestrial lidar, on a tripod, and the guy ended up. It was a. They arrived on a Sunday, I remember, and then on a Monday, the Science Channel showed up, and their film crew from London, and from Monday through Thursday, they were filming, and our guys were doing the job. And I remember for the lighter part, it was really interesting, or it was cool because they were able to collect over 500 million points. So these laser points, and it just turns. This thing is turning constantly. We got because we had to combine the work together. There's shadows of there's the silhouette of the people standing on the arc doing the work. But he went to, I think it was 13 different sites around. I just remember those 500 million points of data. So gigabytes of data was collected, and then that is you layer in the photo. It takes photos too, and so you have this 3D model of the arc with the actual photograph kind of draped over it. And so he was doing that, and then the radar team, the GPR guys, they had three guys, the technician, and then we had a local helper, and then one of the other guys from the company. I think it was like the friend who knew the VP. He was helping, and they scanned the boat with two different antennas. We had a 250 megahertz and a 100. So what does that mean? The 100 megahertz, that lower megahertz lets you penetrate. It's like a more powerful signal, you could say. Um, it lets you penetrate deeper into the soil, into the ground. Of course, there's many factors in regards to how deep radar can go. It includes the soil type. So if it's clay soil and also the moisture content of the soil, if it's higher moisture, less penetration of this electromagnetic signal. And anyways, they were able to get really good results with the 100 megahertz. It's lower resolution, but it can find, it's not going to find like a pencil under the ground, but it could find big rooms or big objects like walls or what, they'll show you things like that or big boulders. And then we did it also with the 250 megahertz. So that's a higher resolution. It's a mid range. So it won't go as deep though. Now with the 100 megahertz, and I'll show you some of these results on my screen soon. But when we talk about the actual GPR work, but the 100 megahertz, we got data down to 40 feet, 13 meters. Which was, I think I did the math right on that. 13 meters, it was close to 40 feet. But anyways, that's pretty good. After that, it's just nothing left of the data set. There are like 50 megahertz antennas. We might try that again just to see if because we really want to see what's below that. Otherwise, you got to switch to different technology like ERT. But that one is not as granular in the resolution, so you're looking at a blob kind of, and it won't show you like really clear layout if it's like a wall or something like GPR can. Any rate, so that week they worked, and so they not only scanned the site with these antennas, with two different antennas, but we had picked out three different areas of the site that we wanted them to really focus the antennas, and this was based on results of the ERT scans done in 2014. Since we had that data, printed out, we had asked the guy who did the scan, okay, what's some of the like best locations that you're seeing something interesting that we could then focus the GPR, which is higher resolution. And so we found three different sites, and we did a zigzag type of survey with the 250 and so it's high resolution. And I don't think we did the 100 megahertz on that, but we did the 250, and it went back and forth in a zigzag pattern at these three sites, and it's really focused in. We hope we could like create a 3D model of something at that location